Do you want to avoid getting bullied like this?
Nee, sofort Revanche. Sofort. Ich schwöre bei Gott, ne? Don't make me fucking mad. Ich schwöre bei Gott.
Frame data. This is the invisible code that decides which moves hit first, how fast you can recover, and whether your next attack is safe or a huge risk. It is the unit of time for fighting game players. At first glance, it all looks overwhelming and complicated, like a college exam about systems theory, for example. But in actuality, we all take advantage of it subconsciously and use the base of it every match we play. Today, we're going deep into the details of frame data, what it is, how it works, and why it's the key to controlling the neutral game in modern fighters like Tekken 8 or Street Fighter 6. We'll even look at the math behind punishments and frame traps so you can see exactly how the numbers come together in your favor or against your favor. Stick around. By the end of this video, you'll be looking at your next fight with fresh eyes. Let's jump in. What is frame data? How did players in the early ages even start figuring out frame data before it was built into games? It all started with some early legends and fan communities dedicated to understanding the nitty-gritty of these games. Back in the early days of Street Fighter 2, players like Jeff Schaffer and David Sirlin didn't have the tools we have now. They relied on intuition. Hours of trial and error and analyzing matches frame by frame. They were some of the first to realize that understanding move timing could give players a huge edge in competitive play. Then, as the fighting game community grew, fans built online hubs to share and dissect this information. Shoryuken.com, or SRK for short, became one of the most iconic fighting game forums at the 2000s. SRK's community was filled with frame data discussions, character guides, and strategies, and it was where people like NKI, a legendary Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo player, shared extensive frame data knowledge. For the Tekken fans, Tekken Zaibatsu was the go-to spot. Here, players dissected frame data for each character, breaking down startup, recovery, and advantage frames. Communities like these gave competitive players access to resources they could never have figured out on their own, and they helped make frame data an essential part of fighting games. Even in the early days of Super Smash Bros. Melee, the legendary player King counted every frame for every move in the game with 26 playable characters. Thanks to the early efforts of these players and communities like SRK and Tekken Zaibatsu, frame data evolved from obscure knowledge into something very serious players study today. Frame data is essentially a unit of time for every move in a fighting game. Since most modern games run at 60 frames per second, each second is divided into 60 tiny frames of time. Frame data tells us exact number of frames or individual slices of time that each move takes to perform. For every move, we can divide frame data into three main parts. Startup frames, the time it takes for your move to come out after you press a button. Active frames, the period during which the move can hit your opponent. Recovery frames, the time after the move has ended, during which you're vulnerable before you can move or block again. Together, these parts create a timeline for each move, which is crucial for both executing combos and punishing mistakes. Let's get into the math of frame data and see how it plays a role in punishment and frame traps. In Tekken, when I jab on my opponent's block, it will probably be +1 on block. The startup frames of most of the jabs are 10 frames. So the millisecond you press the jab button, you need to wait 10/60th of a second until the jab connects. The jab has an active frame of 1 frame, so the hitbox won't linger more than that. On the contrary, there are some moves that linger longer, like Kazuya's Inferno. The startup is 41 frames, but the active frames are 15. So if you stand up after that 14th frame, you get hit. In terms of punishment, it is very important to note the details of the recovery frames. This kind of matchup knowledge is crucial for winning games. If Kazuya tries to hit Lars with his admonishing fist and Lars blocks it, it is minus 12 frames. That means Kazuya needs 12 frames to recover from his attack, and Lars is open to do whatever he can do within these 12 recovery frames. Lars can do his 2-1 into mix-up or his forward 2-4. Even though every character has over 100 moves, you don't have to know every frame data of every move. Start slow with the basic moves of every character and make your way up with every rank. What are frame traps? Let's take Kazuya as an example again. The most classic frame trap he has is his statue smash into Abolishing Fist. It is a true frame trap which the opponent cannot interrupt. But why is that? Let's get into the numbers. If the statue smash connects, Kazuya has a frame advantage of 4 frames, which means that the opponent needs 4 frames longer to recover. Kazuya's Admonishing Fist has 14 startup frames. If you subtract 4 from 14, you get 10. That means the opponent has only 10 frames to get an attack in. The fastest moves in Tekken is at least 10 frames. There are some exceptions. So what happens if the 14 frame move and 10 frame move collide? The Kazuya gets the ultimate advantage with a counter hit launch. In fighting games, a counter hit occurs when a player interrupts an opponent's attack during its startup frames, landing their own move before the opponents can connect. This typically results in added benefits such as extra damage, extended hit stun, or a unique property for the move, like more plus frames or even the launch. Frame data is crucial to understanding counter hits because it reveals the timing of moves, how many frames an attack takes to start, when it becomes active, and how the recovery lasts. To consistently land counter hits, players need to recognize moves with slow startup, predictable patterns, and use faster or invincible moves to capitalize on these openings. So, how does frame data help in the neutral game? In the neutral, both players are seeking control over space, timing, and options. By knowing your frame data, you can throw out moves with precise timings, stay safe, and punish predictable patterns. Understanding the frames of his fastest moves allows you to maintain pressure without leaving yourself open. In Street Fighter, characters like Chun-Li have incredibly fast light moves you can use to control space, and you know the exact frame timings. You can decide when to press, when to block, and when to go for a counter hit or frame trap to push your advantage further. And that's a wrap. Frame data might seem intimidating, but once you get the hang of it, it can really open your eyes to the mechanics behind the action. Whether you're looking to punish, bait, or trap, understanding frame data is like unlocking the blueprint to play at a higher level. So next time you're in a match, pay attention to those frames. You'll start seeing opportunities you didn't know were there. If you found this helpful, give it a thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe for more fighting game insights. Thanks for watching and keep grinding out those frames.